Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and my life is a little more complicated this week because my kids are out for spring break, so I'm dealing with that. My 10-year-old can be a real pain in the butt sometimes. He's kind of needy. He's the baby, and so he's used to getting what he wants and when he wants it, and that can be a thorn in my side at times. Look at this. Now, we're seeing today, probably the biggest distraction of them all with Trump's getting arrested right now. It's on TV. I'm sitting here, I'm watching it while I'm doing this. But anyway, this, not in the United States, but worldwide, this is the most important thing, period. And you got to watch what I'm going to show you. Even if you've seen it before, you've got to watch it. The PetroDollar is dead. One of the key supports for the U.S. dollar since 1971, when we ended the gold standard, gold and silver are going much higher. Not just gold and silver, in my opinion. I believe crypto was created for this exact moment, for Bretton Woods 3, whatever you want to call it. That's why this stuff was created, and I'm not referring to Bitcoin. I'm referring to the ones that are going to have be within the regulator's realm. And I think there's going to be a handful. I think it'll be between maybe 10 and 15. You know, the XRPs, the XLMs, the Algorands, maybe a handful. I don't know which ones. Anyway, the point is, this is always crypto, the 2008 financial crisis, that Bitcoin coming out of that, us watching all this for 10 years. It's like a playground was allowed is what it was. And now, but it's always been about the petrodollar. Look what's happened just here in the last week or so. Gold continues to drift to all-time highs in nearly decade in nearly all fiat currencies globally. The global order continues to change. What's going on? 1, People's Bank of China increased gold holdings by 24.9 tons. In February, OPEC. 2, OPEC is flexing its power in the oil market. 3, the Middle East is realigning. 4, Saudi Arabia continues to strengthen ties with China. 5, Iran's president planning to visit Saudi Arabia. 6, China has expressed willingness to engage in discussions regarding the establishment of an Asian monetary fund with Malaysia. 7, Malaysia's prime minister says Malaysia has no reason to continue depending on the dollar. China has reported 4 consecutive months of gold buying, cutting U.S. Treasury holdings at their lowest level since the last global financial crisis. Things are changing in real time. And back to this one today. Saudi Crown Prince acts to realign Mideast. And I believe today he said, basically, he's not worried about pleasing the U.S. anymore. What does that mean for you and me, especially in the United States? This is 4 minutes and 55 seconds that you need to watch. You need to show your wife, your family, your kids, so that everybody understands where we are and what's about to happen.
Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin sending an ominous message to the West during their 3-day summit this week. As new concerns rise, they are looking to undermine the U.S. dollar. Take a look at this. Vladimir Putin announced this week that Russia will begin using the Chinese yuan for international payments instead of the dollar. Saudi Arabia is also in talks with Beijing to do the same thing. Speaking of Saudi Arabia, meanwhile, they're in talks with Iran as well to consider an economic alliance with China and Russia. And they can even be joining the BRIC countries, which is an acronym for these countries here: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These countries all have emerging economies. So what happens if our economy and the U.S. dollar are no longer the world's dominant currency?
The petrodollar is actually a device invented by Kissinger and Nixon.
The standard of living of all Americans can be traced back to here, the vast oil-rich deserts of Saudi Arabia.
In the early 70s, after the Arab crisis happened with the oil embargoes, OPEC basically tripled the price of oil to the Western world. And at that time, America realized that they were vulnerable because they were importing about 70% of all the oil they consumed.
To secure a reliable foreign source of oil, U.S. President Richard Nixon sent his Secretary of State and National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger to Saudi Arabia for a secret meeting. The result was a pact that still stands to this day.
If Saudi Arabia, which at the time was the world's largest producer of oil, would sell the oil in US dollars, America would defend Saudi Arabia and make sure the House Assad would stay in power.
As a direct result of this U.S.-Saudi agreement, all other oil-producing nations also adopted the dollar as the de facto medium of exchange. Demand for it increased exponentially all over the world, and soon it had a new name, the PetroDollar.
Your currency is only as strong as the demand for it, just like anything else, the supply and demand. Why the petrodollar is important, it causes a demand for the US dollar. A lot of Americans don't realize that over 70% of all the $100 bills in the world are actually outside of the US. There's more $100 bills in Russia than there are in America.
This stockpile of US dollars in countries around the world is because oil is bought and sold using the greenback.
If oil starts trading in non-petrodollars, such as gold or a basket of currencies, or if China and Russia start trading in yuan and ruble rather than US dollars, that demand isn't there. And the way of life for the average American will be done. It will be worse than the Great Depression.
To date, anyone who's potentially threatened the status of the petrodollar hasn't fared well. Libyan strongman Muammar Gaddafi publicly pushed for a Pan-African gold-backed currency that he would trade for Libya's oil. He was killed during a U.S.-backed revolution in 2011. And just a few short years before, Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein advocated selling oil for euros.
At this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq.
The U.S. invaded under the guise of looking for WMDs.
Iraq did not have any weapons of mass destruction. And interestingly enough, after the Americans invaded, took over, put in their own government, the whole concept of selling oil in euros never surfaced again.
Today, many countries resent the current petrodollar system, and their leading spokesperson is none other than Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Americans should be very worried about what Putin can do. There is a new Cold War going on. It is the Colder War. That is exactly what's going on. And who's in the center of this push? Vladimir Putin. And the petrodollar is so crucial to the Colder War. The only thing holding America right now at the top is the petrodollar. And let me make it very clear. If the petrodollar dies, so does America as a superpower.
Or, see, there's another option people haven't considered. What if there was a compromise? Look at the price of gold today. It's crossed $2,000. Jason Cousins, who is the Glint CEO, who is one of my sponsors, gold price jumps $40 to trade above $2,000 as JP Morgan's CEO warns banking crisis is not over and turmoil still to come. He noted that the risks in the U.S. banking systems were hiding in plain sight. That's a thumbnail, if I ever heard one. Hiding in plain sight. So is XRP, by the way. All right, hiding in plain sight. Gold is security. Glint is key. Now, I've told you I have my Glint account so that I can have, it's my spendable gold. I've got a gold. I was actually looking at my Glint account today, and the value of it's gone up a lot. But that's where I've got my gold in the account, and I have a debit MasterCard. I can spend my gold. I also buy physical gold. But the link to that is in the top of the description if you want to go check it out. Now, where does crypto come in? I believe it might be something like this where crypto comes in.
Is some uncertainty about the liquidity provision function in the system, especially during the time of crisis. So if the global or regional safety net can provide a liquidity provision function to the existing system, it can help the system as well as alleviating the so-called stigma impact of traditional safety nets, such as IMF program, for example. What I have in mind is some kind of digital version of IMF SDR, which can be programmed in advance so that they can actually provide liquidity automatically when the crisis happens if the recipient are eligible with a certain criteria. That can provide liquidity as well as reducing the stigma impact that the traditional IMF program has. So all these kind of things, and the actually many criteria that Ravi mentioned and President Lagarde mentioned will be trying to incorporate in our next pilot.
A digital SDR. Now check this out. This is Dark Defender. Hey, all, we discussed two supports within the last. Now, remember, the price of XRP went down. It didn't go down because of the charting and the technical stuff. It went down because there was a rumor floating around that Interpol was after CZ Binance. That drove the whole market down. He says first was 48 cents. We hit 48 cents. Strategy staying above for 3 days, breaking 59 first. 89 cents and $1.76 are the upcoming targets based on the first wave. Then we have this, and I wanted to take a minute to remind everybody of something. First, we've got everybody shutting down. I think it was Bitru in my last video. Now we've got Pax, what's it called? Paxful. Paxful regulatory pressures hitting P2B Bitcoin trading with news that Pax was suspending operations perhaps forever. Co-founder and CEO also cited staffing departures. All right. Now today at 3 p.m., which is in about 20 minutes, John Deaton's going to be on his show, and he's going to go over what went on in the main, there was a main crypto hearing. So I think John went to it. We'll find out more about that at 3. Now, against all these crackdowns, I want to remind everybody, they are not, the United States never has been, nor is their plan to ban crypto. Their plan is to funnel all this new asset class into their friends' arms like Jamie Dimon and Goldman Sachs and all of those guys. That's always been the plan, and I can prove it. While they're trying to shut down all the banks and keep them from banking crypto, not all banks, Gemini had put this out. I showed you a week or two ago. Gemini customer US dollars are held at JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and State Street. So those banks are allowed to operate in crypto. Then we know this. Fidelity's building out a crypto and token search team, and they've just opened crypto to retail. Do you see Gary going after Fidelity? No, you do not, nor will you. Then we had NASDAQ do the announcement that their crypto custody is going to launch by the end of the second quarter. Okay. Speaking of custody, remember, Ledger has been linked to, who's one of my sponsors, which links in the top of the description. They just added Ledger private equity. A lot of you don't even know that Ledger does institutional crypto custody. Look down here at the bottom, and you'll notice some of the companies and institutions that they work with. So Ledger's not just doing hard wallets for you and me. They also have institutional grade custody, which means that they're going to be providing the back end to Wall Street probably too. How about them apples? I'm the digital and you can go up, and I think they've got Ledger, the private equity, available and linked to. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family that the big picture is not Donald Trump being arrested. What's the most important thing is not the Ukraine war. The most important thing that is going on in this entire world is the death of the PetroDollar. And hopefully a great compromise that could provide a new world going into the future that is peaceful, where everybody gets to thrive, which is what I hope for.